The shuttle doors opened with a hiss and stepped onto Orbital Station Vertex 7 for the first time. The Galactic Defense Academy floated in the darkness of space, massive and gleaming like a small moon. Through the viewing windows, she could see dozens of alien ships docking and departing. Creatures of all shapes and sizes moved through the corridors around her. Clutched the long case in her hands. Inside was her most precious possession, carefully wrapped and secured. She had traveled 3 months from Earth to get here, one of only 12 humans accepted into the Academy this year. Out of 3,000 cadets from 47 different species, humans were still rare. Earth had only joined the Galactic Coalition 30 years ago, and most aliens still saw her people as primitives. A tall creature bumped past her without apologizing, its multiple eyes not even glancing her way. Took a deep breath and followed the markers toward the cadet registration hall. The registration area was chaos. Hundreds of new cadets filled the enormous space, speaking in dozens of languages that her translator earpiece struggled to process. Some aliens were twice her height. Others floated in the air or skittered on extra limbs. Felt very small and very human. First time off Earth, a voice asked in Korean. Turned to see another human woman, slightly older, with kind eyes and grease stains on her uniform sleeves. That obvious, replied. You've got that look. I'm Park, second-year engineering track. She stuck out her hand in the old Earth custom. Let me guess, you're military track. Shook her hand gratefully. Yes, weapons specialist. How did you know? Nodded at the case. Only weapons cadets bring cases that shape on their first day. Most use the Academy's equipment, though. What you got in there? Before could answer, a booming voice echoed through the hall. All first-year cadets to assembly. Weapon selection begins in 1 hour. Squeezed shoulder. Good luck, and hey, we're roommates. Housing assignments came through this morning. I'll help you settle in later. She disappeared into the crowd. Followed the flow of cadets to a massive arena. Thousands of weapons lined the walls, each one more advanced than anything Earth had ever produced. Energy rifles that hummed with contained power. Graviton disruptors that could tear apart molecular bonds. Plasma cannons that burned hotter than stars. Neural stunners that could disable targets without physical damage. An alien instructor stood at the center of the arena. He was tall and reptilian, with 3 eyes arranged in a triangle on his face and scales that shifted colors as he moved. His nameplate read, Instructor, 300+ years combat experience. Cadets, his voice carried easily through the space. You will each select your primary weapon for training. Choose wisely. This weapon will be your companion for the next 4 years. Most of you will carry versions of it for the rest of your careers. One by one, cadets approached the weapon racks. A massive armored creature selected a heavy plasma cannon. A floating jellyfish-like being took a molecular that could be operated by thought alone. A 4-armed cadet chose dual energy pistols, spinning them expertly. Waited, her case still in her hands. A large alien pushed past her, nearly knocking her down. He was built like a bull with thick gray skin and small, angry eyes. His species tag read, X. Watch it, human, he growled. Your kind shouldn't even be here. Several other cadets laughed, ignored them, and stepped forward when her turn came. Instructor looked down at her. Cadet from Earth, select your weapon. Sir, said clearly, I request permission to use my own weapon. The arena went quiet. Hundreds of alien eyes turned toward her. Your own weapon, his middle eye focused on her case. Show me. Knelt and opened the case. Inside, nestled in foam padding, was a rifle. It was made of dark metal and polymer, obviously old but meticulously maintained. Every surface gleamed with careful cleaning. The scope mounted on top was clearly hand-calibrated. The silence lasted 3 seconds. Then someone laughed. Is that a chemical weapon? X's voice boomed across the arena. Does it use explosions, like ancient primitives? More laughter erupted. Another cadet called out, "Did you bring that from a museum?" "It fires solid projectiles," someone else shouted in disbelief. "Actual physical bullets." The laughter grew louder. His face burned, but she kept her expression neutral. She had expected this. Instructor raised one clawed hand, and silence fell immediately. He stepped closer and examined the rifle without touching it. All three of his eyes studied it carefully. For a long moment, he said nothing. "This is an M2010 enhanced sniper rifle," said quietly. "It belonged to my great-great-grandfather. He was a soldier in the old Earth conflicts before the Coalition found us. I've maintained and modified it myself. Every component has been rebuilt to optimal specifications." "It uses chemical propellant," said. It wasn't a question. "Yes, sir, smokeless powder. The projectiles are copper-jacketed lead, aerodynamically optimized. It has no computer assistance, no energy shield, no auto-targeting. No, sir, it's entirely mechanical and manual." X laughed again. "Instructor, surely you won't allow this. It's a relic. It belongs in a history display, not on a battlefield. How did Earth even qualify for the Coalition with technology this primitive?" Other cadets murmured agreement, saw pity and contempt in dozens of alien faces. But Instructor wasn't laughing. His scales had shifted to a dark blue color that's cultural database said meant concern, fear. He stared at the rifle for another long moment. Then he leaned close to his assistant, a smaller reptilian creature, and whispered something too quiet for the translator to catch. The assistant's eyes widened, and it nodded quickly. Straightened. "Permission granted, cadet. You may use your weapon for all training exercises." The arena erupted in surprised whispers. "But sir," X protested, "it's completely inferior to—" "I said permission granted." His voice cut through the noise like a blade. "Are there any other questions about my decision?" His three eyes swept the arena. No one spoke. He turned back to, "Cadet, you will be held to the same standards as everyone else. If your weapon cannot perform adequately, you will be required to switch to standard academy equipment. Understood?" "Yes, sir. Thank you, sir." "Dismissed. All cadets report to your assigned quarters. Training begins at 600 tomorrow." As the crowd dispersed, carefully closed her case. She could feel eyes on her back, hear whispered comments and laughter. This was going to be a long 4 years. Found her outside the arena. "Well, you certainly made an impression. Half the academy thinks you're crazy." "Only half," managed a small smile. "The other half thinks you're too stupid to understand how outmatched you are." The expression was sympathetic. "Why did you really bring that rifle? You had to know they'd react this way." Looked down at the case. "My great-great-grandfather used this rifle to protect his unit in the Third Continental War. My great-grandfather carried it in the resource conflicts. My grandfather maintained it even though he never saw combat. My father taught me to shoot with it when I was 8 years old. It's killed enemies at distances those aliens can't even imagine. I trust it more than any energy weapon ever made." Nodded slowly. "Fair enough. Come on, let's get you settled in. Tomorrow's going to be brutal." That night in their shared quarters cleaned her rifle with practiced motions. Each component was disassembled, inspected, cleaned, and reassembled. The ritual calmed her. Across the station, in his office, Instructor sat in the darkness, reviewing classified files on his terminal. His clawed finger scrolled through document after document, all marked with red warning symbols. Human kinetic weapons protocol extreme caution required. Battle of 442B human sniper units, after action report. Coalition military advisory, human ballistic weapons maximum effective range unknown. Had fought in the war that brought humans into the Coalition. He had seen what their primitive weapons could do. He had watched soldiers die from distances they didn't even know were dangerous. On his screen, a note appeared from his assistant. Should we warn the other cadets about human weapons capabilities? Thought for a long moment, then typed his response. No, let them learn. Cadet will teach them soon enough. Some lessons are best learned through demonstration. He closed the files and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there was Earth, a small blue world that had perfected the art of killing at distance because it was all they had. The other species had no idea what they were mocking. Had seen human snipers eliminate targets from kilometers away, striking with precision that no energy weapon could match. He had seen their kinetic weapons pass through shields designed to stop plasma and particle beams. Let them laugh now, he murmured to himself. They'll understand soon enough. 3 weeks passed at the Galactic Defense Academy and had settled into a routine that felt like controlled chaos. Every morning started at 600 with physical conditioning, though the exercises had to be modified for dozens of different body types. Aliens who breathed methane trained in separate chambers. Creatures with 6 legs ran obstacle courses that would break a human's spine. Pushed herself harder than anyone expected, determined to prove that humans belonged here. The harassment never stopped. X and his group of friends made it their mission to remind daily that she was inferior. They would shoulder past her in hallways, mock her weapon during classroom sessions, make loud comments about primitive Earth customs whenever she was nearby. Ignored them. She had dealt with bullies before. But the rifle drew constant attention. In tactical theory classes, instructors would pause when discussing weapon systems, glancing at its antique rifle with barely concealed amusement. Other cadets whispered and pointed during field exercises. Even some of the more friendly aliens treated her with pity, as if she had brought a child's toy to a professional battlefield. Only 2 people seemed unbothered by her choice. Her roommate continued to be supportive and practical, and Instructor watched with those 3 eyes, his expression unreadable. On the morning of the 3rd week, announcements blared through the dormitory speakers. All first-year combat cadets report to Range 7 for live fire evaluation. This is a mandatory graded exercise. Scores will determine class rankings. Checked her rifle one more time, then headed to breakfast. In the cafeteria, she found sitting with another human cadet she hadn't met before. He was young, maybe 20, with quick eyes and an easy smile. "This is Minyu Lee," said. "Second human in your class, Minyu." Minyu extended his hand in the Earth custom. "I've heard about you. You're the one with the antique rifle everyone's talking about." "That's me," said, shaking his hand. "What weapon did you choose?" Minyu grinned and patted a holster at his hip. "Modified rail pistol. Earth-made but newer than your rifle. Uses electromagnetic acceleration instead of chemical propellant. Still fires physical projectiles though. Still no computer assistance." "They let you use that?" "They let me, but they think I'm crazy too. Most aliens don't understand why we prefer kinetic weapons." He lowered his voice. "Between you and me, I think they've forgotten what these weapons can really do. They've been using energy weapons for so long, they've lost perspective." Before could respond, a large shape loomed over their table. X stood there with 3 of his friends, all with the same thick gray skin and aggressive posture. "Enjoying your last meal before you embarrass yourselves, humans." X's translator made his voice sound even more mocking. "The live fire exercise is today. Everyone will see how pathetic your weapons are." "We'll do fine," Minyu said calmly. "Fine?" X laughed, a sound like rocks grinding together. "My plasma rifle has auto-targeting systems that can lock onto 50 targets simultaneously. It fires energy bursts that travel at 90% light speed. It never needs reloading. Your little toys can't compete." Set down her fork carefully. "We'll see." "Yes, we will." X leaned close. "I've placed bets with half the academy. When you fail today, it'll prove that Earth doesn't belong in the coalition. You're primitives playing at being soldiers." He walked away, his friends laughing with him. Minyu watched them go. Don't let him get to you, he's scared. Scared raised an eyebrow. Of what? Of being wrong. If his assumptions about us are incorrect, his entire worldview collapses. So he has to keep mocking us, keep putting us down. It's the only way he can maintain his sense of superiority. Nodded. Minyu's right. Just focus on the exercise. Show them what you can do. Range 7 was enormous, a converted cargo bay with targets at various distances. Holographic enemies would appear and move unpredictably, simulating combat conditions. Environmental systems would create wind, rain, heat distortion, and other challenges. Cadets would be scored on accuracy, speed, and target prioritization. Instructor stood at the front of the assembled cadets, his scales their usual green color. This exercise simulates real combat at standard engagement distances. Targets will appear between 50 and 200 meters. You will be evaluated on your ability to neutralize threats while under stress. Any questions? X raised his massive hand. Instructor, what accommodations will be made for cadets using inferior weapons? Several aliens laughed. Scales shifted slightly darker. No accommodations. All cadets are held to the same standards. Begin when ready. The first group entered the range. Watched as a cadet moved through the course, her energy rifle tracking and eliminating targets with computer-assisted precision. Fast, efficient, effective. Score, 94 out of 100. More cadets went through. Most scored between 75 and 90. The weapons were impressive. Energy beams that never missed, plasma bursts that could hit multiple targets, graviton pulses that could disable enemies without even direct hits. X's turn came. He stomped into the range, his massive plasma rifle held easily in his strong arms. The exercise began and he was ruthlessly efficient. His weapon locked onto targets instantly, eliminating them with rapid bursts of superheated plasma. He moved through the course like a machine, never hesitating. Score, 96 out of 100. He emerged from the range with a triumphant grin, making sure to look directly at, "Beat that, primitive." Minyu went next. His rail pistol cracked sharply with each shot, different from the hum and whoosh of energy weapons. He was good, quick reflexes, steady aim. But the weapon required manual targeting and the recoil slowed him down. Score, 78 out of 100. Respectable but not spectacular. Then it was turn. She entered the range, her M2010 rifle held in a comfortable ready position. The weapon felt like an extension of her body, familiar from thousands of hours of practice. The exercise began. A target appeared at 75 meters. The rifle came up smoothly. She exhaled and squeezed the trigger. The rifle cracked. The target dropped. Another target at 100 meters. Crack, down, 2 targets simultaneously at different distances. She had to choose priority. Crack, crack, both down. The exercise continued. Moved through it methodically, her movements efficient but not rushed. The rifle's recoil was significant compared to energy weapons, requiring her to reset her aim after each shot. The manual targeting meant she couldn't engage multiple targets instantly. She was slower than X, less flashy than the energy weapon users. When the exercise ended, her score appeared, 82 out of 100. Middle of the class, not failing but not exceptional. X laughed loudly as she emerged. 82. Even the other human beat you in speed. That antique is holding you back. Maybe you should upgrade to a real weapon. Other cadets joined in the laughter. Said nothing, cleaning her rifle and checking it for any issues. But Instructor was staring at something on his data pad. He walked over to, his expression thoughtful. "Cadet, may I see your weapon?" Handed it over, examined it closely, then looked at the target data on his pad again. His middle eye narrowed. "Interesting," he murmured. "Very interesting." He handed the rifle back. "Well done, Cadet." Dismissed. After the exercise, returned to her quarters to find Minyu waiting outside. "Not bad for our first scored trial," he said. "We weren't last. We weren't first either." "No, but," he hesitated. "Did you notice reaction? He seemed surprised by something." Shrugged, probably surprised I didn't score worse. "Maybe. Hey, there's a few of us humans getting together tonight in the common area. You should come. We have to stick together in this place." Agreed and spent the evening with a small group of human cadets, maybe 20 total out of 3,000 students. They shared stories from Earth, complained about alien food, and strategized about how to survive the academy. Meanwhile, in another part of the station, a crystalline cadet named Al sat in the library, reviewing combat exercise footage. Al's species thought in mathematics, saw the world as equations and probabilities. She had been analyzing everyone's performance, looking for patterns. She pulled up footage and focused on the target impacts. Each shot had struck within millimeters of the center. The grouping was impossibly tight. Al had assumed it was luck, but the mathematical probability of that grouping being accidental was negligible. She ran calculations on the weapon's characteristics: chemical propellant, physical projectile, ballistic trajectory. If the weapon maintained that precision at 200 meters, and if the precision was limited by the shooter rather than the weapon, then the theoretical maximum range would be. Al's crystalline body flickered with confused light patterns. The number couldn't be right. She must have made an error in her calculations. Physical projectiles couldn't possibly be accurate at distances that far, could they? She made a note to review human weapons history. There had to be something she was missing. In his office, Instructor was having a similar conversation with Commander Axe, the Academy Dean. The commander was a floating gas being, their form contained in a specialized suit. "You're concerned about the human cadet." Axe's voice resonated from speakers in the suit. "I'm concerned about what happens when the other cadets push her too far," replied. "Did you see her target groupings?" "I saw her score, 82, adequate." "Look at this." Pulled up the target impact analysis. Every single shot within a 3mm radius, at 200 meters, with a manual aim weapon. Axe drifted closer to the screen. "That's unusual. That's terrifying. Energy weapons have natural dispersion. Even with computer assistance, you can't get groupings that tight, but chemical propellant weapons with a skilled shooter," trailed off. "You think she was holding back?" "I think she was being cautious. And I think X and his friends are going to keep provoking her until she decides to stop being cautious." Axe was quiet for a moment. "What do you recommend?" "We need to advance the long-range trials ahead of schedule, before someone challenges her to demonstrate what that weapon can really do. Better we control the demonstration than let it happen spontaneously." "You really think one primitive weapon could cause that much disruption?" Scales shifted to a dark, worried blue. "Commander, I fought in the war. I've seen what human weapons can do. That primitive rifle in the right hands is more dangerous than most of the advanced weapons in our armory. The other species don't understand because they've never needed weapons like that. But Earth learned to kill at distances the rest of the galaxy forgot were even possible." Axe considered this. "I'll review the schedule. Perhaps an early long-range demonstration would be educational." After the commander left, returned to his terminal and pulled up classified files again. Video footage from the war showed human soldiers engaging enemies from distances that coalition forces had considered safe. The footage still gave him nightmares. The other cadets were mocking Cadet. They thought her weapon was a relic, a toy, a symbol of Earth's backwardness. They had no idea they were mocking a weapon system that had killed across continents, across centuries, across countless human wars. They didn't understand that humans had spent thousands of years perfecting the art of hitting targets they couldn't even see. But they would learn. Soon enough they would all learn. Week 7 at the Galactic Defense Academy brought the first major assessment results. Cadets were ranked across all categories: physical conditioning, tactical theory, weapons proficiency, team coordination, and combat simulations. The rankings would be posted publicly, determining everything from class assignments to future career opportunities. Stood in the crowd of cadets surrounding the main display board. Names scrolled past in glowing alien script, her translator converting them to readable text. X was ranked 8th overall, impressive for a first year. Several other aliens she recognized filled the top 20 positions. Her own name appeared at rank 43 out of 300 first-year cadets. Not terrible, but not remarkable either. Exactly average. Minyu found her in the crowd. Rank 51, he said with a shrug. Could be worse. At least we're not at the bottom. Could be better too, replied. Yeah, but we're competing against species that have been spacefaring for thousands of years. Some of these cadets come from military families with centuries of tradition. We're doing okay considering Earth just got here. That evening, the cadets threw a celebration party in one of the common areas. X had scored highest among his species, and they were making sure everyone knew about it. Music blared from speakers, deep rhythmic sounds that rattled bones. Dozens of cadets from various species gathered to celebrate. Tried to avoid the area but convinced her to at least grab dinner from the nearby cafeteria. You can't hide from them forever, said. Besides, wants to meet you. Turned out to be another human cadet, medical track, with steady hands and a calm demeanor. She was eating with a small group of humans who had claimed a table far from the main celebration. Finally, said as sat down, I've been wanting to meet the famous rifle girl. Everyone's talking about you. Let me guess, they're saying I'm stupid for using an old weapon. Some are, others are curious. A few are actually starting to wonder if there's more to it than they thought. Gestured toward the party. Ignore them. They're drunk on liquor and their own egos. But ignoring them became difficult when X himself staggered over to their table. His small eyes were glazed, his movements unsteady. Several of his friends followed, all clearly intoxicated. Look, the humans, celebrating their mediocrity. X's booming voice drew attention from across the room. Tell me, how does it feel to be average? To know you'll never rise above the middle because your weapon holds you back? Kept eating, not looking at him. I'm talking to you, primitive. X slammed his massive hand on the table, making the trays jump. You think you're special because the instructor let you keep your museum piece. Everyone knows you're just here to fill Earth's quota. The coalition feels sorry for your backward planet. That's enough, Minyu said, standing up. Or what, little human? You'll shoot me with your toy pistol, X laughed. I could crush you with one hand. A crowd was gathering now. Could see both aliens and the few other human cadets watching. Some looked concerned, others excited, hopping for a fight. Set down her fork carefully. What do you want, X? I want to prove what everyone already knows. That Earth doesn't belong here, that your weapons are obsolete, that you're wasting everyone's time. He swayed slightly, then his eyes lit up with an idea. A challenge, a competition, you and me long-range shooting tomorrow. We'll settle this once and for all. You're drunk, said. Go sleep it off. I'm drunk, yes, but I'm not wrong. X raised his voice even louder. The Academy has a maximum distance range, used for heavy weapons training. 2 kilometers. My plasma rifle can hit targets at 3 kilometers with computer assistance. Let's see what your precious antique can do at real distance. Felt dozens of eyes on her. If she refused, it would look like cowardice. Every human cadet in the Academy would feel the shame of it. But if she accepted and lost badly, it would be even worse. Come on, someone shouted from the crowd. Show him what Earth's got. She's too scared, another voice called. She knows that old rifle can't compete. Minyu leaned close to, you don't have to do this, he's trying to provoke you. But was tired. Tired of the mockery, tired of the assumptions, tired of being treated like a primitive, she looked up at X. Fine, tomorrow, 2 kilometers, you and me. The crowd erupted in excited chatter. X grinned triumphantly. Excellent, tomorrow everyone will see the truth. He stumbled away with his friends, already boasting about his certain victory. After they left, Grab's arm. Are you crazy? That's exactly what he wanted. Now you have to compete at a range where his weapon has every advantage. I know what I'm doing, said quietly. Do you? His expression was worried. Listen, I understand you want to defend Earth's honor or whatever, but we're already outsiders here. If you humiliate him, it'll make everything worse for all of us. These aliens already resent us. Don't give them more reasons. Didn't answer. She excused herself and returned to her quarters. Found her an hour later, cleaning her rifle with meticulous care. The whole station is talking about tomorrow's challenge. Are you sure about this? No, admitted, but I'm doing it anyway. Can you make a shot at 2 kilometers? Was quiet for a moment. Yes, under the right conditions with the right calculations, yes. But will you? What do you mean? Sat down across from her. Has a point. We're already on thin ice here. Most aliens don't think we belong. If you show off too much, if you make X look foolish, it could backfire. They'll just resent us more. But if you lose, they'll use it as proof that we're inferior. You're in an impossible situation. Assembled her rifle, the familiar motions calming her nerves. My great-great-grandfather taught my great-grandfather something. He taught my grandfather who taught my father who taught me. He said, never let anyone make you ashamed of what you are. We're human. We use kinetic weapons because we perfected them over thousands of years of warfare. That's not primitive. That's specialized. Tomorrow, I'll show them what specialization means. The next morning, word had spread throughout the entire academy. Cadets from all years, not just first years, gathered at the heavy weapons range. It was an enormous facility, with target areas extending out to 3 kilometers into space, protected by energy barriers. Lieutenant Ha, a feline officer with black fur and sharp eyes, was supervising. This is highly irregular, she said when Xen arrived. Unsanctioned competitions are not permitted. Then call it a training exercise, X said. Practical weapons demonstration. Ha's tail swished in annoyance. Fine, but Instructor will supervise, I've already called him. Arrived within minutes, his scales shifting through various colors as he assessed the situation. His 3 eyes took in the crowd of cadets, X's triumphant expression and calm preparation. Explain, he said simply. X launched into a theatrical description of the challenge, emphasizing his plasma rifle's superior technology and range. Simply stood there, rifle in hand, saying nothing. When X finished, turned to, Cadet, do you accept these terms? Yes, sir. This is voluntary. You're not being coerced. Voluntary, sir. Scales rippled in a pattern couldn't interpret. Very well. We'll begin with targets at 1.5 kilometers, then 2 kilometers, then if both cadets are successful, we'll extend to maximum range. Standard scoring, accuracy and consistency. Agreed. Both cadets agreed. X went first. His massive plasma rifle hummed to life, computer systems activating with gentle beeps. He aimed at the distant target, letting the auto-targeting system lock on. The rifle adjusted for distance, trajectory, energy dispersion. He fired. A bright bolt of plasma streaked through space and struck the target dead center. The crowd cheered. X fired twice more, both hits, perfect score at 1.5 kilometers. Stepped to the firing line. She looked through her scope at the distant target, nothing but a small dot even with magnification. She made minute adjustments to elevation and windage. Not that there was wind in space, but she was accounting for the station's rotation, the target's orbital movement, and a dozen other factors. She controlled her breathing, slowed her heart rate, felt the rifle settle into perfect alignment, squeezed the trigger. The rifle cracked. 3 seconds later, the delay itself causing whispers among the watching aliens. The target lit up with impact. Dead center. She fired twice more, both perfect hits. The crowd murmured in surprise. X's expression darkened. 2 kilometers, announced. This was beyond standard combat range for personal weapons. Energy rifles started losing accuracy at these distances. Even X's advanced plasma rifle struggled, though the computer systems compensated well. He fired 3 shots. All hits, though not as perfectly centered as before. Took her position, 2 kilometers. She'd made this shot before in practice on Earth, but never under this much pressure, never with hundreds of hostile eyes watching. She ran through the calculations in her head: trajectory, time of flight, station rotation, target orbital velocity, effect from the station's spin. Her father had drilled these calculations into her until they were instinctive. First shot, the 3-second delay felt like forever, hit. Second shot, adjustment for the station's movement, hit. Third shot, perfect. The crowd went completely silent. X stared at the target display in disbelief. 3 kilometers, he demanded. Maximum range. Lieutenant Ha looked uncertain. That's heavy weapons distance. Personal rifles aren't designed. 3 kilometers, X insisted. I can make it. Let's see if the primitive can. Scales had turned a deep blue, the color now recognized as concern. Cadet, you're not required to attempt this distance. Your performance has already been exemplary. I'll try, sir, said quietly. X went first. His plasma rifle was at maximum range. The energy bolts dispersed slightly over the extreme distance, but the computer systems compensated. 2 hits out of 3 shots. Respectable. Then stepped up, 3 kilometers. She'd only attempted this distance twice before, both times under perfect controlled conditions at Earth's training facility. Here, in the Academy's orbital station, variables. But something had shifted in her. She was tired of holding back, tired of hiding what she could do, tired of being called primitive by aliens who didn't understand. She made her calculations, checked her scope, adjusted her position. Through the magnification, the target was barely visible. She fired. For 12 long seconds, nothing happened. Some aliens laughed, thinking she'd missed completely. Then the target lit up, perfect center hit. The laughter died. Second shot, same impossibly long delay, hit. Third shot, the crowd was absolutely silent now, watching in disbelief, hit. Checked his display pad 3 times, as if he couldn't believe the readings. Lieutenant Ha's fur stood on end. X stared at the target board, his small eyes wide with shock. That's impossible. No personal weapon can accurately hit at 3 kilometers. The energy dispersal alone. It's not an energy weapon, said quietly. It's ballistic, no energy dispersal, just physics. But the calculations required, the precision, X trailed off. Ejected the magazine from her rifle, showing it to him. My great-great-grandfather made these calculations with paper and pencil. My species has been making these shots for over 1,000 years. We had to. We didn't have energy weapons or computer assistance. All we had were kinetic projectiles and mathematics, so we became very, very good at both. The crowd of cadets began to disperse, murmuring in dozens of languages. Heard phrases like impossible accuracy and human weapons capability, and we underestimated them. X stood there, his earlier arrogance completely gone. Finally, he spoke quietly. I apologize. I was wrong about your weapon, about you. Nodded acceptance. As the crowd dispersed, approached her. Cadet, that wasn't even your weapon's maximum effective range, was it? Met his 3-eyed gaze. No, sir, it isn't. I thought not. He gestured for her to follow him. Come with me. It's time you learned something about why the Coalition is really interested in Earth. Instructor led through corridors she'd never seen before, deep into the secure sections of Orbital Station Vertex 7. They passed checkpoints where guards checked credentials with serious expressions. The walls here were reinforced, marked with security warnings in multiple languages. "Where are we going, sir?" asked. "The Classified Combat Archives," replied. "Most cadets never see this area, but after your demonstration today, you've earned the right. More importantly, you need to understand the context of what you carry." They entered a room filled with holographic displays and data terminals. The lighting was dim, optimized for the various species who worked here. Activated a private terminal, entering security codes with his clawed fingers. "What I'm about to show you is classified at the highest levels," he said. "The Coalition has kept this information restricted because sharing it would cause panic. But you're going to see it eventually, so better you understand it now under controlled circumstances." A holographic display activated, showing a star map. Dozens of systems were highlighted in various colors. Red zones marked conflict areas. Blue zones showed Coalition territory. And there, near the edge, was a small blue dot labeled Sol System Earth. 30 years ago, began, the Coalition was fighting a desperate war against the Swarm. They're an aggressive species, highly territorial, with superior numbers and technology that matched ours. The war had been going poorly for 17 years. We were losing ground steadily. He pulled up battle footage. Alien ships exchanging fire in space, energy weapons lighting up the darkness. Ground battles on distant planets, with Coalition forces being pushed back by waves of warriors. Then our long-range scouts detected something unusual. A system we'd cataloged centuries before as containing primitive life had developed. Crude by our standards but functional. That system was Sol, your Earth. The hologram shifted to show early human spacecraft. Clunky, inefficient, running on chemical rockets that most species had abandoned ago. We debated whether to make contact. Earth was still using fission power and chemical propulsion. Your people hadn't even left your own solar system properly. By all measures, you were centuries behind Coalition standards, but we were desperate. We needed any allies we could find. Listened silently, gripping her rifle. First contact was made. Earth's governments were overwhelmed, but your military leaders, they understood the situation quickly. They offered to help. We were skeptical, what could a primitive species contribute, but we accepted because we had no choice. The hologram now showed human ships, crude but functional, joining Coalition forces. Your ships were slow, your weapons primitive, your technology ancient by our standards. We expected Earth forces to be slaughtered quickly. Instead, the footage changed. A massive battle in space. Coalition ships being overwhelmed by numbers. Then human ships arriving, not many, maybe a dozen. They didn't engage at close range like Coalition forces did. Instead, they stayed back, far beyond normal combat distances. "Watch," said quietly. The human ships fired. Not energy weapons, but solid projectiles accelerated by electromagnetic rails. The projectiles crossed enormous distances, traveling much slower than energy weapons but with devastating effect. They punched through shields as if those shields didn't exist. "We didn't understand at first," explained. "Why were their weapons penetrating our shields? Then we realized shields, like all Coalition shield technology, were optimized to stop energy weapons. Plasma, particle beams, graviton pulses, but kinetic projectiles, physical mass traveling at high velocity, pass through with minimal resistance. Your species hadn't developed energy weapons, so you'd never needed shields against them. You'd focused entirely on perfecting kinetic warfare." The footage continued. Human ships systematically destroying vessels from distances the Swarm considered safe. The aliens had never encountered an enemy that fought this way. "They adapted quickly," said. "They're intelligent. They began developing anti-kinetic shields. The space battle advantage started evening out. But then, the hologram shifted to ground combat. A command post on a rocky planet, heavily fortified. Coalition forces had tried to assault it 3 times, failing each time with heavy casualties. The footage showed the command post suddenly exploding, not from orbital bombardment but from precise strikes. "The first shots came from 8 kilometers away," said softly. "The commanders died before they even knew they were under attack. Their sensors detected no energy signatures, no incoming missiles, just death from an impossible distance." More footage showed similar scenes. Officers eliminated from kilometers away. Supply depots destroyed by precision fire from positions so distant the enemy never located the shooters. Soldiers who simply dropped dead, killed by projectiles they never saw coming. "Human snipers," whispered. "Yes, your species' particular specialty. The Coalition had long-range weapons, of course, artillery, orbital bombardment, but individual soldiers who could kill targets from kilometers away with handheld weapons. We'd never encountered that. Most species engage in combat at ranges where they can see each other, even if only through enhanced vision. But humans..." Scales shifted to that dark blue of concern. "Humans kill targets they can't even see, targets that have no idea they're in danger." The instructor pulled up another file. After the war, Coalition researchers studied human weapons extensively. They discovered something terrifying. Humans have been doing this for thousands of years. Long before computers, before any advanced technology, your species was killing each other from distances measured in kilometers. You've spent your entire history perfecting kinetic warfare because it was all you had. A woman's voice spoke from behind them, and that perfection is what saved the Coalition. Turned to see a Korean woman in a Coalition diplomatic uniform entering the archive. She was middle-aged, with sharp eyes and a professional demeanor. "Cadet, this is Han, Earth's military to the Coalition," introduced. Extended her hand. "I've heard about your demonstration today. The whole station is talking about it. You scared a lot of people, showing what that rifle can do." "I didn't mean to scare anyone," said. "No, but you did, and that's actually good. It's time the Coalition remembered why they invited Earth to join." Activated another display. "The truth is, Cadet, the Coalition didn't invite us out of generosity. They invited us because they're terrified of what we represent." "A gap in their military doctrine," another voice said. A alien with multiple limbs and compound eyes entered the archive. His nameplate identified him as Dr. Coalition Weapons Research. "Exactly," agreed. "Doctor has been studying human weapons for decades now. Tell her what you found." Doctor's mandibles clicked nervously. In all Coalition history spanning thousands of years and dozens of species, one consistent pattern emerged. Everyone developed energy weapons early in their technological advancement. Energy is clean, efficient, and effective. Physical projectiles were seen as primitive, inefficient, wasteful. Every species abandoned kinetic weapons within a few centuries of achieving. "Except us," said. "Except you. Earth never developed energy weapons naturally. Your planet's unique electromagnetic properties made energy weapons difficult and expensive to develop. So instead, you perfected kinetic weapons to a degree that staggers us. Your species treats ballistic calculations the way we treat energy field equations, as natural, intuitive, fundamental." Doctor pulled up technical diagrams. "Your M2010 rifle represents 500 years of continuous refinement, but the principles behind it go back thousands of years. Humans have been calculating projectile trajectories since before recorded history. You've optimized barrel rifling, ammunition design, optical systems, and shooting techniques through countless wars and conflicts. The weapon you carry is the result of uninterrupted development across your entire civilization's history." "And that's the gap," added. "The Coalition optimized everything for energy weapon warfare. Shields, armor, tactics, sensors, all designed with energy weapons in mind. When they encountered an enemy using kinetic weapons they could adapt because they also used energy weapons primarily. But against humans, using purely kinetic doctrine developed over, they have no effective counter. Brought up more battle footage. In the final years of the war, human forces were deployed to critical battlefields. Not large numbers. Earth couldn't spare many ships or soldiers. But wherever humans fought, the equation changed. Commanders who thought they were safely behind the lines died from distances they didn't know were dangerous. Fortifications believed impregnable fell to precision fire from positions kilometers away. Human ship weapons struck from ranges that bypassed normal combat engagement completely. "We won the war," Doctor said quietly. But afterward, coalition leadership faced an uncomfortable truth. If Earth ever became hostile, our defenses would be largely ineffective. Your weapons pass through our shields. Your effective engagement ranges exceed ours. Your soldiers train from childhood in skills we've never developed. You represent the greatest military threat the coalition has ever encountered, and you didn't even realize it. Felt her grip tighten on her rifle. So Earth was invited to join the coalition. To keep you close, finished. To integrate your forces with ours. To ensure humanity never becomes an enemy. It's not the only reason. There are genuine benefits to membership, real cooperation and cultural exchange. But yes, fear was a significant motivating factor. "That's classified information, of course," said. "Officially, Earth was invited because you met the technological and social criteria for membership. But we who served in the war know the truth. I watched human snipers eliminate commanders from positions so distant we couldn't even detect them. I saw coalition soldiers die because they stood near windows, not realizing that humans could shoot through openings from kilometers away. It changed how we thought about warfare fundamentally." Walked over too. Your demonstration today reminded everyone of this. The cadets who mocked your rifle, they represent the current coalition mindset. They think kinetic weapons are obsolete because their civilizations moved past them. They don't understand that Earth never moved past kinetic weapons. We perfected them instead. Your rifle isn't primitive. It's specialized. And that specialization makes it more dangerous in specific contexts than any energy weapon ever developed. Doctor brought up a final display. Your M2010 has a maximum effective range, in optimal conditions with an expert shooter, of approximately 3,500 meters. On low-gravity worlds with thin atmospheres, human snipers have achieved confirmed kills at over 5,000 meters. That's not a personal weapon by coalition standards. That's strategic artillery. That's assassination capability across entire battlefields. That's a fundamental change in what we consider safe distance in warfare. Looked at her rifle, the weapon her great-great-grandfather had carried, that her family had maintained across generations. She'd always known it was special. She'd always been proud of it, but she'd never understood the full significance of what it represented. "In 3 days," said, "Coalition Command is hosting a military demonstration for member species. Representatives from all 47 coalition worlds will attend. They'll be evaluating new weapons technologies and military capabilities. Admiral X of Coalition High Command has requested your presence." A holographic display activated, showing an elderly alien with wise eyes and ceremonial armor. "Cadet," Admiral X's recorded message began. "Your demonstration today has accelerated our timeline. There are factions within the coalition lobbying to restrict human military capabilities. They're afraid of what your species represents. They want to force Earth to adopt standard coalition weapons and doctrine. But that would be a catastrophic mistake. It would eliminate the very advantage that makes humanity valuable to the coalition." The Admiral's expression was grave. "We need you to demonstrate what human weapons doctrine really means, not to threaten anyone but to educate them, to show them why restricting Earth's military development would weaken the coalition as a whole. In 3 days, you'll have the opportunity to show the galaxy what your primitive weapon can actually do. Are you willing?" The hologram faded, stood in the quiet archive, surrounded by classified files and battle footage from a war she'd barely known about. "You don't have to do this," said quietly. "It's a lot of pressure to put on a cadet, but the timing is critical. If the restriction faction gains support, it could change Earth's entire relationship with the Coalition." Looked down at her rifle again. 500 years of design. Thousands of years of human warfare distilled into metal and mathematics. Her great-great-grandfather's legacy. Her family's tradition. Earth's specialized contribution to galactic civilization. "I'll do it," she said. "It's time the galaxy understood what this weapon really represents." Scales shifted to a lighter color, approval or relief, couldn't tell which. "Then we have 3 days to prepare. This demonstration will be the most important moment of your life, cadet. We need to make sure it counts." Planet Prime was a neutral world, chosen specifically for Coalition military summits because no single species claimed it. The planet's surface was a mix of rocky plains and crystalline formations that caught the light of its twin suns. Today, the military demonstration grounds were filled with more power and authority than had ever seen in one place. Representatives from all 47 Coalition species gathered in the observation dome, a massive structure of transparent materials that allowed viewing of the range below while protecting observers. Generals in ceremonial armor, admirals with centuries of combat experience, defense ministers who controlled the fates of entire worlds, and at the center, the Coalition High Council itself, making their rare appearance for this critical event. Stood in the preparation area, checking her rifle for the 100th time. The weapon was perfect, as always, every component cleaned and calibrated, but her hands trembled slightly. Had come down from the academy to support her. The whole station is watching. They're broadcasting this to every Coalition world. "You're going to be famous after today." Or infamous, muttered. Minu and arrived together, both in their academy uniforms. "We're here for you," said. "The human delegation wanted you to know, whatever happens today, Earth is proud of you." Ambassador Park, Earth's chief diplomat to the Coalition, entered the preparation area. He was an older man with gray hair and sharp eyes that had negotiated countless treaties. "Cadet, how are you feeling?" "Nervous, sir." "Good, that means you understand the stakes." He sat down beside her. "Let me be direct. There are 53 delegates in that observation dome who believe humanity is too dangerous to fully integrate into the Coalition. They want restrictions on our military development, limits on our weapons deployment, oversight on our tactical training. If they get enough support, Earth becomes a second-class member state, permanently monitored, permanently restricted." "No pressure then," said weakly. Ambassador smiled slightly. "You've already done the hard part. You learned to shoot. Today you just show them what you know. The politics will take care of itself." In the observation dome, the assembled delegates took their seats. X was there with the delegation, his earlier arrogance replaced with something more complex. Al, the crystalline cadet who'd been analyzing's performance, sat with her species' scientific observers. Even cadets from the academy had been allowed to attend, filling the upper galleries. General, a massive armored species who'd been one of the loudest critics of human integration, stood at the speaker's podium. "We gather today to assess new weapons technologies, but first, we address the question of human kinetic weapons. There are those who believe these weapons represent an unnecessary danger." "A danger that saved the Coalition," Admiral X interrupted, his voice carrying across the dome. "Let us not forget who turned the tide of the war." "That was 30 years ago," another delegate argued. "Times have changed. Modern warfare has evolved. Chemical propellant weapons are relics." "Then let us see," Admiral X said calmly. "Let the demonstration proceed. Judge the facts, not assumptions." The observation screens activated, showing the range below. Targets had been set at various distances, clearly marked. 500 meters, 1 kilometer, 2 kilometers, 5 kilometers, 10 kilometers, 15 kilometers, and finally, at the extreme edge of the range, 25 kilometers. The last distance drew audible reactions from the crowd. 25 kilometers was considered medium artillery range. Personal weapons simply didn't operate at such distances. Instructor's voice came through the speakers. We will begin with standard coalition doctrine demonstrations, then proceed to human kinetic weapons doctrine. First demonstration, plasma rifle, standard military issue. A soldier stepped to the firing line with the same model Weapon X used. The demonstration proceeded efficiently. Targets at 500 meters and 1 kilometer were hit with computer-assisted precision. At 2 kilometers, accuracy began degrading. At 5 kilometers, the plasma dispersal made hitting targets unreliable. Effective range 2,000 meters announced. Next, energy rifle advanced model. More demonstrations followed. Each species showed their standard military weapons. All were effective at short to medium ranges. Most began failing past 3 kilometers. The longest-range personal weapon demonstrated was a particle beam rifle that could hit targets at 4 kilometers, considered exceptional by coalition standards. Then called human kinetic weapons demonstration. First, rail pistol close quarters variant. Minu stepped to the firing line with his modified rail pistol. He demonstrated rapid fire at close range, then precision shooting out to 1 kilometer. Respectable performance, but nothing exceptional compared to energy weapons at those distances. Next, human kinetic rifle long-range variant, Cadet. Walked to the firing line, her M2010 rifle held in a comfortable carry position. She could feel thousands of eyes on her, even though she couldn't see the observation dome from this angle. She set up her shooting position carefully, laying prone with the rifle supported on its bipod. Through her scope, she could see the targets stretching into the distance. Ambassador's voice came through her earpiece, speaking Korean so the translators wouldn't pick it up. Remember, you're not just shooting targets, you're teaching them what human warfare means. She began with the 500-meter target. 1 shot, perfect center hit. 1 kilometer, the same. Her breathing controlled, her calculations instinctive. In the observation dome, delegates watched with polite interest. So far, this was nothing remarkable. 2 kilometers, adjusted for the slight breeze detected by her scope sensors. The shot took 3 seconds to reach the target. Another perfect hit. Now some delegates were paying closer attention. 3-second projectile flight was much slower than energy weapons, but the precision was noteworthy. 5 kilometers announced. This was where things would get interesting. 5 kilometers was considered the absolute maximum for personal energy weapons, and even then, accuracy was questionable. Made her calculations, elevation, wind, air density, planetary rotation. The target was barely visible even through her scope. She controlled her breathing, let her heart rate slow, and felt the perfect moment. She fired. For nearly 10 seconds, nothing happened. Some delegates began murmuring, assuming she'd missed. Then the target exploded with impact, dead center. The murmuring stopped. She fired twice more, both perfect hits at 5 kilometers. General stood up in the observation dome. Impossible. Energy dispersion alone should make that accuracy impossible at that range. It's not an energy weapon, Ambassador said calmly. There is no energy dispersion. It's a solid projectile following a ballistic trajectory, pure physics and mathematics. Doctor activated a holographic display showing calculations in real time. The shooter is accounting for wind speed, air density, gravitational pull, planetary rotation, and effect. These calculations were developed by humans over thousands of years of kinetic warfare. They're performing them instinctively, the way your species would calculate energy field equations. 10 kilometers announced. The observation dome fell completely silent. 10 kilometers was heavy artillery range. No personal weapon should even attempt such a distance. Adjusted her position slightly. The target at 10 kilometers was invisible to the naked eye, just a theoretical point in space. But through her scope, with maximum magnification, she could barely make it out. The calculations became more complex. At this distance, even the rotation of the planet beneath her mattered. A miscalculation of a single degree would send the projectile meters off target. She visualized the trajectory in her mind, the arc of the bullet, the time of flight, the way gravity would pull it down, the way wind would push it aside. Her great-great-grandfather had made these calculations with paper and pencil. Her father had taught her to feel them in her bones. She fired. 23 seconds of flight time, the longest seconds of life. The target lit up, perfect hit. Half the delegates in the observation dome stood up in shock. General was staring at the display screens as if they were malfunctioning. That cannot be accurate. Check the sensors. Sensors are functioning perfectly, Doctor confirmed. 3 more shots incoming. Fired twice more at the 10-kilometer target, both perfect hits. This is what we mean by specialization, Ambassador told the assembled delegates. Earth didn't develop energy weapons early because our planet's electromagnetic properties made them impractical. So we perfected kinetic weapons instead, not as a primitive stage to move past, but as a complete military doctrine unto itself. 15 kilometers announced. Now even the most skeptical delegates were watching intently. 15 kilometers was approaching the range of ship-mounted weapons. The idea of a single soldier hitting a target at such a distance seemed absurd. But had trained for this. On Earth's military ranges, human snipers practiced at extreme distances because they knew what the galaxy was only now learning, that sometimes the oldest weapons, perfected over, could do things that advanced technology couldn't. She made her calculations. The complexity was staggering. She had to account for the curvature of the planet at this distance, the density variations in the atmosphere. Even the temperature differential between ground and air affected the bullet's flight path. But humans had been making these calculations since before. Snipers in Earth's wars had eliminated targets from similar distances using nothing but mathematics and skill. She fired. The projectile arced through the air, following a parabolic trajectory visible on tracking displays. 37 seconds of flight. Impact dead center. The observation dome erupted in shocked conversation. Delegates who had been calling human weapons primitive were now staring in disbelief at the demonstration screens. X stood among the delegation, his expression one of awe. "I mocked her," he said quietly to his commanding officer. "I called her weapon a museum piece." "You didn't understand what you were seeing," his officer replied. "None of us did." Al's crystalline form was flickering with rapid calculations. The mathematics are extraordinary. To account for all variables at that distance with manual calculations, her species must think in trajectories the way we think in crystal harmonics. Fired twice more at 15 kilometers, both hits. The precision was no longer surprising, it was terrifying. 25 kilometers announced. Final demonstration. This was the extreme edge of what was possible. Had only successfully made this shot twice in her life, both times under perfect controlled conditions. Here, on an unfamiliar planet with different gravity and atmospheric conditions, it was almost impossible. Almost. She studied the distant target through her scope. At 25 kilometers, even maximum magnification barely made it visible. The bullet would be in flight for over a minute. Any mistake in calculations, any unexpected wind variation, any fluctuation in air density would result in a miss. But this was what she trained for. This was the legacy of every human sniper who'd ever calculated an impossible shot. This was thousands of years of warfare distilled into a single moment. She explained as she calculated, her voice carried through speakers to the observation dome. Ballistic trajectory requires accounting for projectile drop due to gravity. At this distance, approximately 15 meters of vertical compensation. Wind speed creates horizontal drift, compensating 4 meters left. Planetary rotation affects the target's position during flight time, compensating 2 meters right. Air density variations create unpredictable turbulence, estimating based on atmospheric models. Effect from planetary spin, compensating 1 meter left. Temperature gradient between ground and high atmosphere, calculating trajectory curve adjustment. The delegates listened in stunned silence. No computer was making these calculations. Just one human cadet with a rifle her great-great-grandfather had carried into battle. These calculations, she continued, were first developed by human soldiers over 1,000 years ago, before computers, before we knew other species existed. We perfected them because we had no choice. On Earth, if you couldn't hit a target at extreme range, you died. So we learned. We practiced. We passed the knowledge down through generations. She settled into her final shooting position. Every muscle relaxed. Her breathing slowed to barely perceptible. Her heart rate dropped to an almost meditative state. "This weapon is 500 years old," she said quietly. "The principles behind it are thousands of years old. You call it primitive, we call it perfected." She fired. For 68 seconds, absolute silence filled the observation dome. Every eye was fixed on the tracking displays, watching the tiny projectile arc across 25 kilometers of space. The projectile began its final descent, dropping toward the distant target, compensating for gravity and rotation and wind, and 1,000 tiny variables that had calculated in her mind. Impact. Perfect center hit. The silence lasted another 3 seconds. Then the observation dome erupted in chaos, delegates shouting in dozens of languages, scientists demanding to examine the data, military officers recalculating their entire understanding of long-range warfare. General sat down heavily, his earlier skepticism completely shattered. 25 kilometers, with a handheld weapon, calculated manually. I wouldn't have believed it if I hadn't seen it. Admiral X stood, his voice cutting through the noise. "This, delegates, is why Earth was invited to the coalition. Not because we pity their primitive technology, not because we needed numbers in our military, but because they've perfected a form of warfare we had forgotten was even possible. Human kinetic weapons doctrine represents a fundamental gap in coalition military thinking, a gap we cannot afford to leave unfilled." Ambassador addressed the assembled delegates. "Earth doesn't seek to dominate the coalition, we seek partnership. But understand this, we evolved on a death world where everything wanted to kill us, including each other. We learned to kill at distance because getting close meant death. You mock our primitive weapons because your civilizations moved past them early. We never moved past them, we perfected them instead. And that perfection makes us valuable, not dangerous." Doctor displayed technical analysis on the holographic screens. Human kinetic weapons pass through energy shields with minimal resistance. They operate at ranges that exceed standard coalition combat doctrine. They require no power source beyond chemical propellant. They're silent compared to energy weapons. They leave minimal detectable signatures. In the hands of trained operators, they represent strategic artillery capability in a personal weapon platform. Restricting this technology would not make the coalition safer, it would make us weaker. One of the delegates who had been lobbying for restrictions stood slowly. "I withdraw my proposal. What we've witnessed today is not a threat to be contained, but a capability to be integrated." Others nodded in agreement. The opposition to human military integration was crumbling as they watched. General approached the speaker's podium. I have fought in 17 campaigns across my 400 years of life. I have never seen anything like what that cadet just demonstrated. 25 kilometers, manual calculation, perfect accuracy." He paused. "Earth's warriors are not primitive. They're specialized in ways we never imagined. The Coalition needs this specialization." The vote was called. Full integration of human military doctrine into Coalition training programs. No restrictions on Earth's weapons development. Recognition of human kinetic warfare as a specialized combat discipline. The measure passed with overwhelming support. In the preparation area below was surrounded by her fellow humans. Minyu, all cheering and celebrating. Ambassador shook her hand formally. "You just changed Earth's future in the Coalition, cadet. Well done." Instructor approached, his scales now a warm golden color. "Exceptional performance, cadet. You've taught the galaxy something important today." "What's that, sir?" "That old doesn't mean obsolete. That specialization beats generalization in the right context, and that humanity's greatest strength isn't trying to be like everyone else. It's being uniquely, perfectly human." X approached last, his massive form somehow looking humbled. "Cadet, I owe you more than an apology. I was arrogant and ignorant. You tried to tell us what your weapon could do and we laughed. We won't make that mistake again." Nodded acceptance. "You weren't wrong to be skeptical. Energy weapons are superior in most contexts, but kinetic weapons—" She held up her rifle. "Kinetic weapons excel in specific areas that energy weapons can't touch. It's not about one being better. It's about understanding when to use each." The demonstration concluded with an announcement from Admiral X. The Coalition would establish a new division, Kinetic Warfare Specialists, to integrate human shooting doctrine across all Coalition forces. Would become the Academy's first human weapons instructor, teaching aliens the mathematics and techniques her species had spent perfecting. That evening, stood on an observation deck looking at the stars. Found her there, as usual, understanding when her friend needed quiet reflection. "How does it feel?" asked. "Changing galactic military doctrine in a single afternoon." Looked down at her rifle, the weapon her great-great-grandfather had carried, that her family had maintained across generations. "I just showed them what this rifle can do, what human snipers have always done. Kill targets from distances the enemy thinks are safe." The instructor called it perfected technology. "It is. We've been refining kinetic weapons for thousands of years. Every war taught us something new. Every conflict pushed the technology further. By the time we reached space, we hadn't abandoned kinetic weapons. We'd made them as good as they could possibly be." Smiled. "And now you're going to teach the galaxy what as good as they can possibly be really means." In the following weeks, alien cadets began training with human-designed kinetic weapons. They struggled at first. The mathematics were complex, the techniques unfamiliar. But slowly, they began to understand. A cadet made her first kilometer shot and experienced the unique satisfaction of hitting a target through pure calculation and skill, no computer assistance required. Al studied human ballistic mathematics with fascination, translating them into her species' crystalline thought patterns. She published a paper that became required reading in Coalition military academies. "The Human Doctrine: Why Perfection of Fundamentals Beats Technological Advancement." Even General requested personal training, wanting to understand firsthand what human soldiers could do. Earth's status in the Coalition transformed. No longer the primitive newcomers, but specialized strategic partners. Other species still had superior energy weapons and faster ships and more advanced technology in many areas. But in the specific domain of long-range kinetic warfare, humanity was unmatched. Minyu and, along with other human cadets, formed the core of the new Kinetic Warfare Division. They taught classes in ballistics, trajectory calculation, precision shooting, and the philosophy of human combat doctrine. "Distance is survival," Minyu would tell his alien students. "On Earth, We learned that the safest place to be was far away from danger, so we learned to kill from far away. It's that simple. Months later, received a communication from Earth. Her father, now elderly but still sharp, appeared on the video screen. Your mother and I watched the demonstration. Your great-great-grandfather would be proud. That rifle has now served 4 generations of our family and taught the galaxy something they needed to learn. What's that, father? That the old ways aren't always obsolete. Sometimes they're perfected. You took a 500-year-old weapon and used it to change galactic military thinking. That's not primitive. That's mastery. Looked at the rifle mounted on her wall, cleaned and maintained as always. Through the window of her instructor's quarters, she could see the training ranges where alien cadets practiced with kinetic weapons, learning the mathematics and techniques that humans had perfected over. The galaxy had laughed at her old Earth rifle. They'd called it a museum piece, a relic, a symbol of humanity's backwardness. Until she'd whispered back with precision strikes from distances they'd thought were impossible. Now they understood. The weapon didn't kill from continents away because it was advanced. It killed from continents away because humans had spent thousands of years learning exactly how to make it do so. Specialization, perfection, mastery of fundamentals. That was the human way, and the galaxy was finally learning what that really meant.